folks, how's it doing tonight? Thank you very much for tuning in. My name is Kevin Fleich, and this is the weekly Wounded by War Facebook Live broadcast. Tonight we're going to be talking about lesson number 4 of 5. So last week we talked about lesson number 3, we talked about lesson number 3, which is live your life like you're going to die tomorrow. And that's a lesson that I learned during a very intense and prolonged firefight with a couple weeks left in my first deployment to Afghanistan. So I was incredibly thankful that I had learned that lesson when I did, because pretty much as soon as we got back from our first deployment, we found out that we'd have to be going back to Afghanistan in 7 months. Or I'm sorry, that's right, in 7 months. For a second I thought I said 7 days. It felt like 7 days. So I was really happy that I learned that lesson, because I tried to install that in my life to try to take advantage of everything and really live in the moment while I was home. And that 7 months went up, just like that. Next thing you know, I'm on a plane to go back to Afghanistan. And the whole time that I was in Afghanistan, I really tried to keep that lesson, live my life like I was going to die tomorrow and live in the moment. I tried to really think about that throughout my whole deployment. And so that meant that every email that I had, every Facebook message, every phone call, any interaction that I had with friends or family on the outside, I tried to really cherish that, because the next day, who knows what was going to happen on the next mission. Then I also tried to cherish my interactions with my teammates and didn't take things like my faith for granted and partook in the base Bible study. And so I was very happy that I was instituting those things in my life, and I was especially happy 7 months into my second deployment. Because on September 25th, 2011, our team was tasked with doing a valley clearing operation in northwestern Afghanistan. And so at this point, we had been working with our Afghan soldiers for 14 out of the past 21 months. And so we were kind of working like a well-oiled machine, and it really wasn't a surprise to us that this mission came down to us. And so basically what we would do is get dropped off of one end of the valley, and then we would just clear through the small villages along the way, check the houses, talk to the people, just see what was going on. And we'd clear through the valley and check each village until we reached a designated point, and then we'd get picked up by helicopter. And usually these missions would last anywhere between 1 to 3 days. So on this morning of September 25th, we landed just before the sun came up. And about 1 hour into the mission, our element came under fire. So for the rest of the day, our element was in some type of contact in some way, shape, or form with the enemy, whether it be through snipers, machine guns, or mortars. And in the 10th hour of that engagement, I found myself on a rooftop trying to provide some support by fire for my teammates. And we were taking a lot of fire from a building that was across an open field. And so one of my teammates on the eastern side of our valley, to my right, he volunteered to go take that compound down. Now I'm sure that everybody here watching it, even if you've never been in a firefight, you can understand a firefight is intense enough and dangerous enough, so going through an open field is practically suicidal. So at 27 years old, in my infinite wisdom, I thought I'd survive 14 months in Afghanistan, I'd be alright. I decided to stand up on this rooftop that I'm on to try to draw the fire to myself, because I think I have less of a chance of getting shot than my teammate. And so other teammates around the valley had the same idea. They stayed up at their locations, they tried to draw fire to themselves. One person took it's called a VS-17 panel, which is just a bright orange piece of cloth, and started waving it around back and forth to try to draw fire to him. And so when our teammate took off, our tactic worked probably better than any of us had wanted it to, actually. Bullets started going past my head and landing at my feet. It was the same situation for my other teammates. And once my teammate made it to the compound, and I started to realize there was really no purpose in me standing up there getting shot at, my team sergeant called me over the radio to gently remind me that I should get off of the roof right now, and he used a few choice words that I won't repeat here. And as soon as he said that to me, I looked down at my Afghan soldiers to my left and right, and I said, if we don't get off this roof, we're going to get shot. And those guys don't speak a lick of English, but they understood every word that I said, because it was the fastest I had seen them move throughout those 2 years that I was with them. So I was the last person off of the roof of this building, and I wanted to get my squad together and start to push forward into a dry riverbed that was in front of us, because I thought we were taking enemy fire from that area there. And I went around the corner of the building, and I wanted to just kind of get a good vantage point as to how I should organize my squad and start to push forward. And I stood exposed for a second or two too long, and even if you've never been in a firefight, you can probably understand that a second or two too long in a firefight is 1 second too many. And so it felt like all of a sudden somebody came up and hit me in the stomach with a sledgehammer as hard as they possibly could and suspended me in midair. And I thought to myself, like, did you just get shot? And I didn't know because I'd never been shot before. But as soon as my body slammed off the ground, I realized that I had indeed been shot. And my helmet flew off my head, my earphones flew off, and I just had to struggle to keep myself conscious. The pain was just so intense. I crawled back, I put my earphones on, I called up my teammates and let them know where I was, what the situation was. And after I got off the radio, I started to try to treat myself, but there was really medically nothing I could do at that point. And I kept trying to stay conscious. I kept thinking I was going to pass out because I was in so much pain. A couple minutes went by, and it felt like a couple years. I got back on my radio, called my teammates, and just let them know how dire the situation was. And they were trying to get to me, but they were pinned down by enemy fire at that point. And then when I got off the radio that second time, something happened that really answered a lot of questions for me as to why I was spending so much time in Afghanistan and working with the soldiers that I was working with. Very frustrating working with a foreign fighting force like that, and I found myself questioning it a lot of times. But when I got off the radio that second time, I looked up and there was an Afghan soldier that I had been training for the past 2 deployments running towards me. And I was just laying out in the open, exposed there. And he came out, exposed himself to enemy fire, and took me and dragged me behind the compound and got me to safety. As soon as he got me to behind the compound and got me to safety, my teammates started to flow in. And people started frantically working on me. And throughout all that, though, I could hear one of my teammates talking to our senior medic. And the teammate said, is Kevin going to make it or not? And our medic said, I don't know. It looks pretty bad. We'll see. And so I love to joke about it with these guys right now, but during the time I could hear every single word that they were saying. And then I could also start to tell by the way that some of my teammates were treating me. A guy who, for instance, hadn't said a compliment to me in 3 years comes up to me with a couple tears rolling down his face, and he won't admit it, but he was crying, and tells me he loves me. And so I could just tell, based off of what I heard my medic say and based off of how my teammates were treating me, that, there was a really good chance that I was going to die there. I'd had so many close calls before where bullets come like this close to me, but this one was inside of me. And so I started to think with each passing moment that was going to be one of my last moments on Earth. But this time was a lot different than the last time I'd gotten trapped on a hilltop 14 months ago in Afghanistan, or 14 months prior in Afghanistan. I thought that I was going to die. Because I had really made all the attempts to try to learn from that lesson and live my life like I was going to die tomorrow and enact those lessons in my life. I was living the way that I knew I should be. And so this second time around, when I was shot and I thought I was going to die, I didn't experience that sheer terror and panic that I had before. I was sad, of course, that I thought that I would never see my wife or my family or friends again, but I wasn't just scared to death like I was the last time. And in essence, I was really ready to die if I had to. So once my teammates got me stabilized, they had to carry me through an open field to get to the helicopter landing zone where they were receiving fire and returning fire. They loaded me up on the helicopter. It was about a 10 or 15 minute flight to the surgery tent. I got to the tent. It was a pretty frantic, crazy situation. People are prepping for their emergency surgery. People start cutting my uniform off me. People are asking me questions. Then the surgeon says to me, "Do you have any questions?" I said, "Well, yes. Am I going to live or not?" I said, I don't know. You hold on. We're going to do what we can. Do you have any last requests? And so I said, yeah, I think I'm going to die, so I need a Catholic priest to give me my last rites. And if you can, save the bullet, please. I luckily have the bullet at home right now. He put the mask on my face, and 4 days later, I woke up in Landstuhl Regional Medical Center in Germany. Just completely confused, like very uncertain of what was going on. I had my stomach cut open. I had just been shot 4 days earlier. The last thing I remember is being in a surgery tent. I got tubes hanging out of every orifice in my body. I'll let you imagine that, every single orifice in my body. So pretty tough situation to be in. But luckily for me, there was a friendly face in Landstuhl Sergeant First Class retired Matthew Northcutt, about a year to the day earlier, he had gotten hit with 2 grenades and had gotten shot. So, like, here's poor me. I've only been shot one time, you know. And luckily for me, he was in launch stool convalescing from his wounds. And he came to see me one of the first few days that I was there. So he made a little small talk with me, you know, asked me how I was doing. And then he gave me the best advice I've ever received in my entire life. It's the advice I use every single day. It's the advice that's gotten me from, you know, that hospital to standing before you right now. He looked me in the eyes and he said, "Kevin, plenty of people have been shot. Don't be a fucking pussy about this." And hey, sorry for the crude language, but I can't censor the best advice I'd ever gotten. That's really lesson number 4. I toned it down a little bit to don't feel sorry for yourself. That's what I took from Matt's advice that day. But it was exactly what I needed to hear, because I didn't need anybody feeling sorry for me. And I especially didn't need to feel sorry for myself. You know, a couple days later when I got transported to San Antonio, Texas at Brooke Army Medical Center, I was able to start doing my physical therapy. And that's where I really started to think about that message that Matt gave me. And I thought about every day how lucky I was to be alive, because he was right. You know, plenty of people have been shot. And plenty of other people lost their arms, they'd lost their legs, and they had burned from head to toe. And so I knew that no matter how bad it got for me, there was always somebody else that had it worse than I did. And so I took that attitude and I tried to keep going with it every single day of my recovery. It's something that I even have to tell myself today. There's certain days I wake up, I have so much pain I can barely get out of bed. But I got to remember to not feel sorry for myself, because I'm just lucky to be in the position that I'm in right now. And so I know that there's probably a lot of people out there that have similar stories, or, you know, and if you feel comfortable sharing, I'd love to hear it. You know, maybe talk about an incident in your life that showed you to not feel sorry for yourself, an incident that maybe you go back to for inspiration. And also, too, I want to hear, you know, what you feel about these broadcasts. You know, I'm always constantly trying to improve, so I want to hear some sustains and improves from you about what I can do better, and, you know, what you want me to keep on doing with this. So thank you very much for tuning in. If you're inspired, I ask you to please share this so other people can get the message. And I've also put some photos up at www.woundedbywar.com. If you click on blog, it's lesson number 4. And this gives you some photos from the day that I was wounded, a Google map of the village, and then some pictures of myself at the San Antonio hospital. So thank you very much. God bless, and I look forward to next week's lesson, lesson number 5. Have a good night.